Hello everyone. Amongst other things, I work as a musical director for theatre projects, for theatre shows. And I've been doing that for quite a number of years now. One of the theatres that I work at is a really small theatre, and there's not an awful lot of room for the musicians, unfortunately. There's definitely not room for a huge orchestra. There's enough room for 2 or 3 musicians, possibly 4 at a pinch, at a squeeze, but space is limited. And also, because the whole theatre is actually quite small as well, it wouldn't be appropriate to have a massive band anyway. So we have enough room for live keyboards, bass, drums, possibly a guitar sometimes, which is great, and it's fantastic having live musicians, obviously, but it does kind of limit your sort of options of what you can have in the score and how interesting you can make it. And I do think it's important to have a nice full interesting orchestration and full sound. So what I like to do is something that is actually a technique that's been used in theatres for a great number of years now. And it used to be something that was really quite difficult to do. In fact, I've got a whole bank of equipment just to my side here, stuff that I no longer use. I just never use it anymore. Lots of hardware bits and bobs that I used to use to achieve this. But now I can do all of this using my Mac and using Logic Pro X and Mainstage 3. And this is sort of a new way of working for me. And I did do some research on YouTube to find some videos on this, and I didn't find anything that sort of showed the whole process of how you get from track to the final thing in Mainstage. So I thought that might be useful if there's anybody like me trying to do this sort of thing. So that's what I'd like to do, is just show you my whole process. I've been working on a show recently, yeah, I can show you the whole thing from beginning to end. So the problem really is creating a track that live musicians can play along to. So in order for that to happen, they need a click track, which needs to be in sync with the backing track or whatever you record, and we do that via a click track, but that has to be separate, routed separately, obviously, because the audience don't want to hear the metronome, don't want to hear the click. So let me show you how I do it. So let's dive in. I've got a little bit of music here that I've used for a show recently. It's just a little play off the end of Act 1, a fun little bit of music to show everybody it's the end of Act 1 and wish them well as they go to the bar for their interval drink, or to buy their ice creams or whatever. I'll play it to you first of all. Have a listen. There we go. Not exactly the most subtle bit of music ever, but it achieves the purpose. It's just a little bit of fun. So you can see on Logic here, I've got my track all set up. When I'm doing a whole show, and it could contain anything up to 35, 40 tracks sometimes, I do like to put together a template, and this ensures that I'm using the same sounds for each song or each piece of music, so there's some continuity across the whole show. That's why there's lots of things here that haven't got anything recorded in. It's just all part of the same template. So anyway, I don't need to go into too much detail about that. So there's my bit of music. That's the first really important thing. So secondly, we need a click track, and at the top here I have recorded Crotchet's click track. Using velocity, you can make sure that the first click is louder than the other 3. That helps to orientate the musicians. And I do this on its own little track. I've got what's called the Yuri click, which was a free download from somewhere on the internet, and this is kind of an industry standard click. It has a sound that doesn't have any particular defined note or pitch, which is really important for musicians who need to keep on top of their own tuning and intonation. You don't want anything that interferes with that. And this click is what's widely used in film recording and so on. So I've done that, and it's just crotchets, and that's on its own separate little thing there. I mean, you could go further with that. You could have a count in as well as the click, and you could tell the musicians at the end when to come off, things like that. But I've just kept it simple, and just the 4 crotchets in each bar are there. So everything is set up. So what I do next is bounce out the main track. So let's do that. We go to bounce, project. I'm going to do this. You could do it as an MP3 or a WAV file. I'm going to do it as a WAV file. That's all set up and ready to go. So let's do that. And I'm going to call that Act 1 Playoff, and I've got my own little folder here to keep my sync files in. It's really important to keep everything nice and organised. So that is there, ready to go. So let's get that bounced out first of all. Okay, so that's all done, and you could check that that's worked properly. We will assume that it has, and then you need to bounce out your click. So I solo the click part, and again exactly the same process. Bounce that out. And I always write click. There you go. So that's there. So you've got 2 separate audio files for this one number saved in the folder. So that's as far as we need to go with Logic. So the next stage is to move this into Mainstage. And I haven't been using Mainstage very long, but it's absolutely brilliant. It's so useful for this sort of stuff. It's been an absolute revelation to me, actually. So let's get Mainstage opened here, and here it is. And so what I'll do to make this really as straightforward as possible, we're going to use one of the templates that they've already that they suggest at the beginning here. It says keyboard and 4 backing tracks. So let's get that one loaded up. And this gives us a basic keyboard patch. There, all ready to go, and 4 tracks that you could play. We only need 2, so I'm going to go into the layout, and I'm going to get rid of all of this, just to make everything nice and clear. And we go back into the edit mode, and then you come over here onto your channel strips. We can turn off 3 and 4 because we're not going to be using those. You could obviously delete those channel strips. Here we have the playback machine all ready to go, and we need to load in here our files that we bounced out a moment ago. So Act 1 Playoff, there it is, and that's loaded it into the playback thing. So that's there and ready to go, and I'm going to label that down here as the track so that I remember which one is which. And in the second playback is where you're going to put the click, which is the right one. So that is in there now. Now, that now will play the track as we heard earlier. Etc. So you can hear that the click is coming through as well. I have a Focusrite Scarlett audio interface, which is really cool because it has 2 separate outputs. So I can set the click to outputs 3 and 4, and the track to outputs 1 and 2, and that will route them in different directions. So the when we're in the theatre, I forgot to label that one, click, let's put that in there, and everything's nice and clear. And then when we're in the theatre, the track can be routed out to the audience, to the stage, and back to the musicians, and the click is only routed to the musicians, so they hear a combination of the music and the click, and the audience doesn't. And that's really all there is to it. And it works brilliantly in Mainstage. And I then set up my keyboard patches alongside that. And once you've got this first bit set up, it's really easy just to copy and paste your songs and build up a whole track list there. And then when it comes to the show, it runs so easily. I save all of this onto my iCloud drive, and then I pick it up on a cheap laptop, laptop, MacBook Pro that I've got from eBay. It's not particularly high spec, but it doesn't really need to be to run this. It seems to work really, really well. And one other little trick I'll leave you with is that you can assign different buttons and things to the various different options you've got here. And the play button, this is really useful. You can assign that to, say, the bottom note on your keyboard. So you press play and then assign a map. It turns red. You press your key, and that remembers that. And then when you press that key, it triggers the playback of the track. So that makes it really easy. You don't have to take your hands off the keyboard. I think we've heard enough of that. And that's how you do it. It's really, really straightforward these days. That's the whole process. I hope you found that useful, and do let me know if you did. Okay, all the best. Good luck with your show. Okay, see you later. Bye-bye.